Now, when you were in Congress, I remember first you were coming to my attention with the food for
oil for food.
The oil for food, right?
Yeah.
The scandal. But what would you say were some of your other accomplishments, greatest accomplishments, and do you have some disappointments?
I have some disappointments. I have a knack for kind of being on the cutting edge. So the oil for food was an issue where we learned that Saddam was selling his oil for less and getting a kickback, and buying commodities for more and getting a kickback. He was making a mockery of the oil for food program, which was to say you only should have oil for food. He was able to get lots of extra income, and from that extra income fund other things. I was the first out in warning about the terrorist threat. When I took over my National Security Subcommittee, it had focused on drug war. I focused it on the terrorist threat. We had 3 commissions that basically were warning us that if we didn't wake up. I had 20 hearings before September 11th, and candidly, I knew more after September 11th than anybody else did until others kind of caught up. Ethics reform, lobby disclosure, campaign finance reform were legislations that I really took the lead on. I was the first to speak out about Fannie and Freddie. I had a hearing where, and by speaking out, legislation to get them under the Securities and Exchange Commission, because they weren't under the 33 Act or the 34 Act, like all other public companies. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, these behemoths that were basically funding housing, they weren't putting enough reserves aside. They were declaring false profits. You had Mr. Raines, who was running the company, take out $114 million by establishing false profits. Why he's not in jail is a surprise to me. But we got them under the 1934 Act, and that's when people realized that they were simply cooking the books. And I wish we could have done it a little sooner, but we did that. Obviously, a disappointment would be to have voted to go to war in Iraq and do all the research and have Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and Chris Dodd believe that he had weapons of mass destruction in me, and then find that he had destroyed it before then. He wanted us to think he had it so he could kind of, intimidate his neighbors and whoever else he wanted to intimidate, but he didn't have them.
Now, the country, of course, has some major issues, and I don't know whether you can limit it to what you might feel are your 3 most urgent issues in the federal.
That's an understatement. Our country is going bankrupt. And I was raised to know that when you keep spending more than you have, you're going to ultimately go bankrupt. Getting our country's financial house in order, like I kind of snuck in the beginning before you asked me, and doing it not in 12 or 18 or 24 years, but do it within a 6-year frame, to me is absolutely essential. We have trillion-dollar deficits. We've had our debt go up 5-fold since President Obama's been president, $5 trillion. And I believe that we have this incredible opportunity to become energy independent. It's almost like get out of the way. We can't get out of the way because you got to regulate how you get out the natural gas from down below, because you're going to use a fracturing system that you want to make sure you don't compromise your water system.
Right.
But you do that through sensible regulations. So I put that as number 2. And number 3, I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to say transform Washington, and then I have 2 things under transform Washington. You once and for all simplify the tax code. It's gotten so crazy. It's gotten to be where we are spending $300 billion a year, private individuals and businesses, just to comply with our tax code. $300 billion is a huge amount. And the other part is we need to get rid of the regulations that are just holding us back. The regulations that make no sense. So the way I would do that, and when I say simplify a tax code, let me just make sure you lower the tax rates because you get rid of a lot of the exemptions. And I really believe that you need to bring the corporate income tax the employers pay, get it practically down to zero. We're at 35. The rate around the world is 25. You've got Canada that's 15. You've got Ireland that's 12. If we were to get down at least below 12, or at 12, or even at 15, you would see a plethora of money come back to the United States. Just so much money coming back to the United States. You would see an increase of jobs. You would see pension funds and individual people's savings in business and so on just grow immensely. You would see economic activity come back. So simplify the tax code, become energy independent, and transform Washington by lowering the tax rate, getting rid of the write-offs, and getting rid of some of the outrageous regulations.
Well, speaking to some of the write-offs, can you give an example or two of?
Well, you know what? I'll give you the examples that you might want to keep. You might want to keep some of the mortgage deduction. You might want to keep some part of a charity deduction. Clearly, you keep the child tax credit. But there are literally thousands of exemptions for business, for certain individuals. And then the crazy thing is when they take advantage of the exemptions, then you got a president that says they got to pay 30%. No, don't tell them they got to pay 30%. Get rid of the exemptions and you don't have to tell them that. What's the point of giving, you have an incentive, we give you an incentive if you want to invest in certain housing assistance, you get to write off some of your taxes and you benefited housing. But we get rid of that, we lower the tax rate for everyone, you generate economic activity and you've helped housing more than anything.
Okay. Now, I know that if you're successful and become our next senator here from Connecticut, that you'll be on some committees. I know that you might not have a say in which ones, but that you might be on. But which do you feel you'd be well suited for?
Well, I served on the Government Oversight Committee that investigated everything the government did. We didn't write laws and we didn't appropriate dollars. When I was on the Homeland Security Committee in the House, I was on the Financial Services Committee, so I clearly have expertise there. When I was in the State House, I was on both the Tax Committee and the Spending Committee. I don't really care what committee I'm on right now because I'm going to take some of what I do to the floor of the House. It's been 1,091 days since the Senate Democrat majority has passed a budget. The House Republican majority has passed a budget every year. A budget tells you how much you can spend, how much you can tax, how much you can entitle. They haven't done it in 1,091 days. So I'd go on the House floor and I'd be asking the minority leader, when are they going to do that? The majority, when is he going to do his job? When is the Democratic majority? I won't say Democratic majority, just say when is the majority going to do its job? And what's going to happen after the 10th time I do that, some Republican's going to put his arm around me and say, Chris, you're not making many friends. I might even have a leader saying, Chris, you may not get on the committee you want to get on. That's why I bring this up. There's nothing they can do to me that will stop me from being outspoken about the junk that is going on in Washington. And therefore, I'm not sure I want to tell them what committee I want to be on, because there's nothing that they can take from me that I care about.
Okay. Now, we only have a few minutes left, but and I'll try to, if you can do it maybe in a minute or less. I don't know if you have any comments on Obamacare or if you just want to kill the whole thing.
Well, first off, health care is important to all Americans, so you can't discount that.
Right.
The president putting 26-year-olds in their family plan, if their families have a plan, dealing with pre-existing condition. Now, you don't want people to wait till they're sick to get health care,
right,
but that's something. The lifetime cap can be brutal for somebody who's contracted cancer at age 16. Those are things you need to look at, but I believe it should be done on a state level. We have the Husky plan. We have a state plan that allows people who don't have insurance to buy insurance. Admittedly, it's expensive. We have about 93% in Connecticut already have health care, 91%. The average is 85, so some are at 80. And what the president does with his health care plan, it's very invasive. He takes, now I could spend a long time telling you the bad part.
Maybe that's another show.
But the bottom line is, it's invasive. It takes 10 years of taxes and spends it over 6 and says it's balanced. It has a whole lot of problems. You need to kind of start over, but not, you know, not do something, but you do it on the state level.
Okay. And we're getting close to the end of the show.
So you repeal Obamacare.
Okay. We're getting close to the end of the show. Are there any pledges that you'd like to make to our audience?
You know what I am pledging is that as a senator, I won't ask some senator way far off in the distance to balance the federal budget. I'll do it in my term. That's what I'm voting to do. And I pledge to be outspoken like I've been, hopefully not arrogant, but that I'll use the same model I've always used. Listen, learn, help, and lead. I'll work with Democratic colleagues, but I'm not going to compromise principles. But, you know, the Constitution of the United States was a collection of compromises. It wasn't, hell no, we wouldn't have a Constitution otherwise. We love the Constitution, then we should appreciate how it was established.
Okay. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up our show now.
Well, I enjoyed being with you. Thank you.
Again, thanks for being our guest. Chris Shays, former congressman and candidate for the Republican nomination for the U.S. Senate from here in Connecticut to fill the retiring Joe Lieberman's seat. I want to remind our viewers that our air dates are on Charter Channel 21 on Mondays at 4:30 and Thursdays at 7. We also post segments up on YouTube where you can find them. We'd love to hear from you, whether it be comments on guests or on shows or guests or shows you might like to see in the future. You can reach us and you can contact us at brookfieldpublicadvocate@yahoo.com. Again, thanks for watching and good night.